1.
First thing you want to do, approach the front of your vehicle and look underneath of it for any colored fluids or puddles that may indicate any leaks. Next, check your front headlight assembly. High and low beams, right and left turn signals, hazard lights, clearance lights across the top, and any reflectors. Make sure they're not missing, they're not broken, they're clean and in proper color. High and low beams should be clear or white. All of the lights in front are amber with red to the rear. Next, first thing you gotta do is check all general hoses on both sides of the engine compartment for any damages or leaks. Then check your coolant level, make sure it's above the add mark through a sight glass. If there's no sight glass, remove the cap and visually look inside. Check your water pump, make sure it's securely mounted. On this truck it is gear driven, so make sure that it is not damaged, it's not leaking, and it is working properly. Check your alternator, make sure it is securely mounted. All your wires are securely fastened. It's belt driven, so make sure the belt is not cut, cracked, or frayed and has no more than 3/4 of an inch of play. You're going to check your air compressor, making sure that it is securely mounted. It's gear driven, so make sure it is not damaged, it's not leaking, and it's working properly. Check the engine oil on your dipstick to make sure it's above the add mark. Check your power steering fluid. Make sure it's above the add mark, either through a sight glass or remove the cap and use the dipstick to check the fluid level. Follow your hose down to your power steering pump. Make sure that power steering pump is securely mounted. It's gear driven, so make sure it is not damaged, it's not leaking, and it is working properly. Check your steering gearbox. Make sure it is securely mounted. It's not damaged or leaking. It has no loose or missing nuts or bolts. Check any attached hoses for any damages or leaks. Check your pitman arm, drag link, and your knuckle. You want to make sure that they're not cracked or worn. Check your joints and sockets, which are both ends of the drag link and on both ends of your tie rod. You want to make sure that they are not loose or worn, and that there are no loose or missing nuts, bolts, or cotter pins. Check your spring hangers, front and back. Make sure they are securely mounted. They're not cracked, broken, or damaged. They have no loose or missing bolts. Check your bushing. Make sure it's not damaged or missing. Make sure you do not have any shifted, cracked, or missing springs. No broken, loose, or missing U-bolts. Your shock is securely mounted and not leaking. Brake hose. You want to check the fittings at both ends. Make sure they are secure and not leaking. The hose is not cut, cracked, or frayed. Check your brake chamber. Make sure that it is securely mounted. No dents or cracks. It is not leaking, and there's no loose or missing clamps. You want to check your slack adjuster and your push rod. Check the slack adjuster to make sure it's securely mounted. Check both the slack adjuster and push rod for any bent, broken, loose, or missing parts. And when pulled by hand, the push rod should move no more than 1 inch. On the inside here, you'll find your drums and lining. Make sure the drums have no dents, holes, or cracks. The lining is not worn too thin, and they both are free of any grease or oil. On your tires, you want to check your inner and outer sidewalls for any cuts or damages. Make sure your tread is worn even. You have a minimum of, no less than, or at least 4/32 of an inch of tread depth. Locate the valve stem and cap. Make sure that the cap is not missing. They both are not broken or damaged. And you're going to make sure these tires are properly inflated using a tire pressure gauge. Check your rim. Make sure it is not bent, cracked, or have any illegal welds. We're going to check all of our lug nuts, making sure that they're all present and they're tight, with no signs of any shiny threads or rust trails that may indicate they will be loose. Check all the bolt holes for any cracks or damages. Make sure that our axle seal is not leaking, and wipe our sight glass clean, and make sure our fluid is adequately full. Check our door. Make sure that it is secure, not damaged. It opens and closes properly. Our seal is intact. Our hinges are secure. Our grab bar, mirror bracket, and mirror are securely mounted and not damaged. If our truck was equipped with DEF, we'd make sure that the DEF tank had at least 1/8 of a tank of fuel. We'll check our fuel tanks and our cap. Make sure the tank is securely mounted and not damaged. The cap is on tight and they both are not leaking. We're going to check our steps. And our catwalk. Make sure they're securely mounted, solid, and free of debris. Then we're going to check our exhaust. The entire exhaust, from our manifold to the top of the stack. We're going to make sure that it is secure. It is connected tightly. Has no loose or missing clamps. Check for any dents, holes, or cracks that may indicate any leaks. We're going to check our frame. Make sure the frame is not bent, cracked, or have any not bent or cracked. We have no bent, cracked, loose, or missing cross members. Our drive shaft is not bent, cracked, or twisted, and our U-joints appear tight and free of debris. Then we check brake hose, our fittings at both ends. make sure that they're secure and not leaking. The hose is not cut, cracked, or frayed. Check our brake chamber. Make sure the brake chamber is securely mounted with no dents or cracks. It's not leaking, and there's no loose or missing clamps. On the back side of that brake chamber, right there, you'll find a slack adjuster and push rod. We'll make sure that slack adjuster is securely mounted. Check both slack adjuster and push rod for any bent, broken, loose, or missing parts. And when pulled by hand, your push rod should move no more than 1 inch with your brakes released. Check your spring hangers, front and back, make sure they're securely mounted. Not cracked, broken, or damaged. There's no loose or missing bolts. Check the bushing, make sure it's not damaged or missing. Then you make sure you do not have any shifted, cracked, or missing springs. No broken, loose, or missing U-bolts. And your shock is securely mounted, not leaking. On the airbag, you check the airbag mount to make sure that it is secured in place and it is not damaged. The airbag itself is not damaged or leaking. On the inside, you can find your drums and lining. When we see the drum, have no dents, holes, or cracks. The lining is not worn too thin, and they both are free of any grease or oil. Check your tires, your inner and outer sidewalls for any cuts or damages. Make sure that the tread is worn evenly. You have a minimum of, no less than, or at least 2 32 inch of tread depth. Check your bud rims. Make sure they're not damaged. They're evenly spaced and free of debris. If equipped with bud spacers, make sure they were not rusted through, bent, or damaged. Also evenly spaced and free of debris. Check your rim. Make sure it is not bent, cracked, or have any illegal welds. Check your valve stem and cap. Make sure the cap is not missing. They both are not broke or damaged. And make sure your tires are properly inflated using a tire pressure gauge. Check all your lug nuts. Make sure they're all present and they're tight with no signs of any shiny threads or rust trails that may indicate they would be loose. Check all the bolt holes for any cracks or damages. Make sure your axle seal is not leaking. And if there was a sight glass, we would wipe it clean and make sure our fluid was adequately full. We'll check our second axle the same as you checked your first. Here, we're going to check our mud flaps, make sure they're securely mounted, not damaged. Our reflective tape is present. We'll check all of our lights and reflectors on the back of the tractor. The tail lights, brake lights, turn signals, and hazards, along with the reflectors, making sure, again, not missing, not broken, clean and proper color, red to the rear, amber to the front. Now, if this truck was equipped with a torsion bar, we make sure that torsion bar was securely mounted and not damaged. On the trailer, start off by checking all your lights on the front of the trailer and all your lights and reflectors on the side of your trailer. Make sure, again, not missing, they're not broken, they're clean and proper color, amber to the front and red to the rear. Check the headboard, make sure it is secure, it does not have any holes, bulges, or damages, no loose or missing rivets, and it can support your cargo or your load. On the side, we can check your longitudinal frame members or your upper and your lower frame rail. Make sure it is not bent or cracked. We're going to make sure that we do not have any bent, cracked, loose, or missing cross members. Check the trailer floor for any holes or damages. Landing gear, check the support frame and the landing pad. Make sure they're securely mounted and they're not damaged. Your landing gear is fully raised. Your crank handle is secured in place or secured in its cradle, and there's no loose or missing parts. Our reflective tape is present. Now, back here, we're going to check our tandem release handle and our lock pins. Make sure that they're secure and locked in place. Check our spring hangers, front and back, securely mounted, not cracked, broken, or damaged. No loose or missing bolts. Make sure your bushing is not damaged or missing. Make sure your torsion bars and torque arms are securely mounted, not damaged. Make sure we do not have any shifted, cracked, or missing springs. No broken, loose, or missing U-bolts. And we have no shocks to airbags, so we're not going to talk about them. Check our brake hoses. We check the fittings on both ends. Make sure they're secure and not leaking. The hose is not cut, cracked, or frayed. Check the brake chamber, securely mounted. No dents or cracks. It's not leaking, and there's no loose or missing clamps. On the back, you'll find a slack adjuster and push rod. Make sure that slack adjuster is securely mounted. We're going to check both slack adjuster and push rod for any bent, broken, loose, or missing parts. And when pulled by hand, our push rod should move no more than 1 inch with our brakes released. Check your drums. Make sure they have no dents, holes, or cracks. Your lining is not worn too thin, and they both are free of any grease or oil. Your tires, inner and outer sidewalls for any cuts or damages. The tread is worn evenly. You have a minimum of, no less than, or at least 2 32 inch tread depth. Check your bud rims. Make sure they are not damaged. They're evenly spaced and free of debris. If equipped with bud spacers, make sure that they were not rusted through, bent, or damaged. Also evenly spaced and free of debris. Locate your valve stem and your cap. Make sure the cap's not missing. They both are not damaged or broken. And we're going to make sure our tires are properly inflated using a tire pressure gauge. Make sure our rim is not bent, cracked, or have any illegal welds. Make sure all of our load nuts are present and tight, with no signs of any shiny threads or rust trails that may indicate that they would be loose. We're going to check all of our bolt holes for any cracks or damages. Make sure the axle seal is not leaking, and wipe our sight glass clean and make sure the fluid is adequately full. Check your second axle the same as you checked the first. Mud flap, securely mounted, not damaged. If this truck or this trailer had an ABS light, probably mounted right about here, we'd make sure that ABS light, again, was not missing or broken and clean and proper color, always amber. On the back, we're going to check our doors and our hinges. Make sure our hinges are securely mounted, not damaged. Our doors are not damaged. They open and they close. They latch and unlatch properly. Our reflective tape is present. We check all of our lights. We don't have any clearance lights, so we're not going to worry about them. But we do have tail lights, brake lights, turn signals, and hazards. Again, make sure they're not missing or broken. They're clean and proper color. Red to the rear and amber to the front. Also check any reflectors on the back, making sure they're not missing or broken, clean and proper color. Always red to the rear and amber to the front. On our coupling devices, we'll start by checking all of our lines, making sure that they are all connected from the trailer to the tractor. On our air lines, we're going to check our fittings at both ends, here and here, 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 and here. We want to make sure that they are sealed. Check our glad heads and seals, make sure that they are secure in place and not damaged. Check our electrical line at both ends, making sure it's firmly seated, locked in place. To check all of our lines for any cuts, cracks, illegal repairs. Make sure that they're not all tangled up or dragging on our frame. For the fifth wheel area, we're going to check our apron. Make sure that it is not bent or cracked. Check our skid plate. Make sure our skid plate is securely mounted to our platform. It is not damaged. It's properly greased and there has no loose or missing bolts or pins. Our platform is securely mounted to the slide assembly and not cracked or broken. The slide assembly is securely mounted to the frame. All of our mounting bolts are present and they're tight. We check our lock pins, making sure they're not loose or missing. They're secure and fully engaged. Check our release handle, making sure that it is secure all the way in and engaged. If it was equipped with a safety latch, make sure that safety latch was secure and locked in place. Now, if you look up at the front, you have an air line going right back to a piston. That piston is your air assist. You want to make sure that it is not leaking. Up under here, we're going to look up inside the throat, mouth, or channel of our skid plate. We're going to check our kingpin, which got to go up and down. Make sure that it is securely mounted and not bent or damaged. Our lock jaw, which is going sideways across there, we want to make sure that it is secured around our kingpin so that it will hold. And finally, we're going to check the space, gap, or distance between the landing gear and the back of our tractor, making sure that there's enough space to safely make a turn. Now we got to do an end cap, right?